once the girl likes me, I get tactical, right? If you're too tactical from the start, you end up with a problem where the girl never likes you. Game is essentially designed, it's this simulation of being a high-value guy, right? And hopefully you already are a high-value guy, you already are having fun, and most of this stuff is ingrained in you over time, right? But it's a simulation of how high-value guys that are having fun and leading, how they act, right? But if at any point the game theory stuff starts to make you not have fun and like visibly be trying too hard or visibly, in your head or whatever, it's gonna stop working. And so whenever I go out, I have as my priorities, unless I'm really working on a specific skill, but in general, 90% of my attention and focus is having fun and just doing well with what I know, right? Just doing my current best and having a good time and just bringing the soul of game, right? And then 10% I'm working on a few specific skills, right? I think I said 90 and 10, 90 and 10, 95, 5, something like that, right? So it's mostly having fun, mostly doing what's worked for you in the past and enjoying the moment. And allowing yourself to feel in the moment because the girl is going to feel relative to what you feel, right? If you are with, guys ask all the time, how do I make an interaction sexual? If you start feeling sexual in the interaction will be sexual. For the guys that were on boot camp, you saw the set on the sidewalk at the end where I was winging him, right? Did you guys see that from the start? Did you see from the approach or no? You just saw it once it was already on? Okay, even so, on the sidewalk, what level of physicality and intimacy was I just being on the sidewalk? Did it look like a platonic thing or did it look like fairly man to woman? Fairly man to woman, right? But we hadn't kissed or anything like that and there wasn't super sexual conversation. But what did I do to make it man to woman? I did flirt a little bit and tease a little bit. But the other thing I did is I just held eye contact. I held proximity. Like when she was talking, I just smirk at her and I kind of lean in as though we were getting close for a kiss, even though I didn't intend to kiss her there because she's in front of her friends. But there's this idea of, you can call it sexual state projection. That's what they used to call it back in the day. But if you feel more aroused, the girl can feel that. She can tell that. If you're staring in the girl's eyes and thinking about kissing her, she's getting some sense of that message and she will to some extent think about kissing you as well. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. If she's totally turned off by it, that may end the session. No, I'm not doing this. But assuming it's going well, if you do that, she's more likely to get into that state as well, right? And so a lot of game is you're conveying your state. If you're in a happy state, she can tell, and she's going to follow that state to some degree. If you're in a sexual state, she can tell, she's going to follow that state to some degree. If you're saying all the right lines, but you're in the wrong state of mind and the wrong vibe, it's actually weird and it will be unattractive, right? And I've seen this with students. Students watch my videos and they memorize my lines and learn my lines and stuff like that. And then I'll see her break down their infield. And if you were to read a transcript of it, if it was if it was a play written out on paper and not performed on stage, it would look like good game. Oh, this guy has good game and the girl's rejecting him for some reason. This girl's weird, right? That's what it would look like if you read it. But if you see it, you can tell what's wrong because he's not being those things. He's delivering the lines in a wrong way, even if they're the right lines. And what happens with number one, the lines are ineffective, but number two, the lines become incongruent, right? It actually weirds the girls out because it's almost like good game, but not quite, right? Do you guys know what the, this is a random reference, a good thing to know in life. Do you guys know what the uncanny valley is or the valley of the uncanny? Yeah? Basically the idea is this. The more human-like something is, the more you can feel emotions for it. Right? Is it easier to get emotionally attached to a refrigerator or a teddy bear? Teddy bear, right? It depends what's in the refrigerator. Good answer, very good answer. But so the teddy bear is more human in life, it's cuddly, it's a mammal, and so you can feel emotions for it. Kids get attached to their teddy bears, they don't get attached to their refrigerators, right? Unless there's a lot of candy inside, maybe. So it's more human-like, you can like it more, right? And the closer, if there was a graph, the closer something gets to human, the more you can form attachment to it, and it goes up and up and up. But what happens when you get very, very close to being human and there's something off, there's actually this huge dip of revulsion where it's human but wrong, right? So think like a corpse. One of the most repulsive things for most people is seeing a corpse, it's ew, right? Or zombies, right? It's not quite human. Or if you see he mentioned dolls, certain dolls that don't quite look right, they're meant to look human, but there's something off, like the Chucky, horror type stuff, right? That kind of stuff, it's the uncanny valley. Right? And so that's the problem when you're almost doing good game, but not quite, you have the uncanny valley. And actually it's something people go through when they're learning game, is that their game's getting better, and then all of a sudden it gets worse, right? And oftentimes it gets worse right when you're about to get to really good, but it's really, really frustrating. Fortunately, it doesn't happen every time. It just happens with some frequency, and you're still getting some success usually. But that can be definitely a thing if your game is losing that soul, right? And so if at any point as you're acquiring new skill in game, you find that you're really going backwards, what you want to do is reset to the last time things were going well and just see if you can replicate that, right? So this is something I do with, online is a good example of this, right? Let's say you have a good online profile that's really working, online profile and online photos that are working, but you want to keep implementing, changes and upgrades, and you want to keep getting better because it's a competitive marketplace. So you implement some new photos, you implement some new stuff, and all of a sudden it's not working. Well, it's a good idea if you copy and pasted and saved your last good profile, and you're like, okay, fine, I'm scrapping this, I'm going back to the last good one, and I'll start tweaking from there. Same thing in game. If I have a particular approach that's working, like maybe I'm doing a lot of very sweet but sexual teasing and it's working, and then some guy like me comes and says, you need more disqualification in your game, you need to be more of a badass, you need to be more high value. You start implementing it, it works for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it really stops working. Well, it'd be nice to reset to that sweet type of game and then restart that process. So you always want to keep in mind, what is your most effective scenario? What were you doing? Not just action-wise, but also emotionally and vibe-wise and approach-wise. You want to encapsulate that the best you possibly can, not just the words, but also the feeling, and have an idea of that. And so you can always go back to it. And over time, if you have various things that have worked, maybe you'll have like, this is one like capsule that I can always go back to that worked, and this is this other capsule of game that worked, et cetera. And eventually, obviously, as you learn more things, you'll get better and better versions of it, right? But you should always be able to go back to what was working. And when you're doing that, when you're thinking about game, remember not just the technical stuff, but the emotional stuff, the delivery stuff. It all does definitely matter.